Hello and welcome to the morning sports briefing here on New Zealand Sports Radio. Yes, it's Friday the 26th of June, and in the headlines this morning, hope for New Zealand cricket in the summer. Penrith too good for Souths, 25% cut for New Zealand rugby, and Australia and New Zealand win the Women's Football World Cup. Yes, this is your best way to start the day up to date with all the important sports news. And yes, let's kick off with that football news. And New Zealand and Australia are going to be hosts of the 2023 Women's Football World Cup. So fantastic news there. They had got the highest rating of the technical review by FIFA. Also, we had seen in recent days two of their competition pull out as well. One in South America, and then also Japan, leaving Colombia as the only competition in the end. But with Colombia coming in with a very low technical rating, Australia and New Zealand won the votes 22-13, which is fantastic news. So really look forward to reporting on that one in 3 years' time. Who knows what New Zealand Sports Radio will have grown into by then. Moving on to other football news. And in the Premier League, Tottenham Hotspur beat West Ham 2-0. And we had five other games overnight. Man United beat Sheffield Wednesday 3-0. Newcastle United and Aston Villa fought out a 1-1 draw. Norwich lost to Everton 0-1. Wolverhampton Wanderers beat AFC Bournemouth 1-0. And Liverpool beat Crystal Palace 4-0. So, yes, a plethora of games there. And then also we've had Burnley beating Watford and Southampton losing to Arsenal. So yes, lots and lots of football going on in the EPL, and no more positive tests have come up as well, which is good news over there. I'm going to hand you over to Ashwin, who's going to take us through our cricket update.
Good morning, Paul, and good morning to our listeners and viewers out there in the interweb. And a big surprise there turning up on a Friday morning. So, yes, the reason is because I thought there's some news that you'd like to hear about. Hope for New Zealand cricket in the summer. After a dormant start to the year where the Black Caps have basically been sitting around doing nothing since the Australia tour was abandoned, NZC, New Zealand cricket, have penciled in the West Indies, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Australia for tours to New Zealand. These will be all run under the Future Tours program for the 2020-21 season. David White, the chief executive for New Zealand cricket, is confident that the full season of international cricket in New Zealand will go ahead. Further to the summer scheduled news is that the Black Caps and White Ferns, Black Ferns are playing rugby, so it wouldn't be them. Black Caps and White Ferns will assemble in Lincoln for the first of 6 scheduled camps on the 13th of July. So they're starting to move into some semblance of getting into normality there. Those camps will be shared between Lincoln and Mount Maunganui, where they've created a base there as well. And in other cricket news, after positive COVID-19 tests within the Pakistan team, Jofra Archer sent a scare through the England camp. Archer was tested after a member of his household felt unwell over the weekend. But good news for England is the Archer test results came back negative. The household was tested negative earlier in the week, and Archer went for a precautionary second test, which also came back negative. He will now be able to join the team in Southampton for resumption of training before the West Indies series, which starts on the 8th of July. And Paul, that's my surprise appearance on a Friday morning and the cricket news.
Thank you very much, Ashwin, for joining us for the on this Friday to bring us up to date with all of that wonderful cricket news. I'm going to hand you over to Stephen now, who's going to take us through today's birthdays.
Yeah, great to see Ashwin here this morning, and it was a surprise, and it's probably a surprise to see me at another location from downtown Auckland. This time I'm bringing you my birthdays and league news this morning, and it's the birthdays I'm going to start with today. An experienced sailor who covered the globe, an elite ICC umpire, and finally a former New Zealand cricketer now in charge of Cricket New Zealand. And that's where we will get things underway. David John White, born this day, the 26th of June, 1961, is a former New Zealand cricketer who played in 2 tests and 3 ODIs in 1990. Domestically, he played 99 first-class matches for Northern Districts. White also played for Poverty Bay and Bay of Plenty in the Hawke Cup. A former leading rugby administrator, David White, has also served as a chief executive of New Zealand Cricket, and I suspect he's still in charge of Cricket New Zealand. Moving on, Anthony Hill, born this day, 26th of June 1951 in Auckland, commonly known as Tony Hill, is a retired international cricket umpire from New Zealand. He was a former member of the elite panel of ICC umpires. His first international fixture was an ODI between New Zealand and Zimbabwe at Napier in March 1998, and he stood in his first test match in December 2001 between New Zealand and Bangladesh at Hamilton. And finally, Anthony Ray, also known as Trey, born this day, the 26th of June 1961, is a New Zealand sailor who has competed in the Volvo Ocean Race 6 times and the America's Cup 7 times. He was then on board Team New Zealand when they won the 1995 America's Cup with Black Magic. Wow, that seems such a long time ago. He then returned to ocean sailing, being on board Innovation Cavanera during the 1997-1998 Whitbread Around the World race before rejoining Team New Zealand for the 2000 and 2003 America's Cups ventures. So that's it for birthdays. I'll be back shortly with league news.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And it's good to see. Have you broken down? You've got the AA behind you with your orange flashing light.
That's the cop that's pulled me up. No. I've no idea. I do see a flashing light behind me.
It looks like it's orange. It looks like you're okay for that one.
Yeah.
Moving on to rugby news. And it was good that yesterday we had the New Zealand Rugby released the revised Mice 10 Cup draw. So we can now see when we can get out and watch all our provinces play. We'll be looking here on New Zealand Sports Radio. We're looking at getting round as many of the provinces as we can. Getting to Bay of Plenty, Waikato, Counties Manukau, Auckland, North Harbour and Northland. Yes, so looking at bringing you live reports from those games and also interviews with the players. The big change this year is that the Thursday night, there will be no Thursday night games, and instead we'll have 2 games on a Sunday at 2 o'clock. I think it's 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. 2 o'clock. So 2 games at the same time at 2 o'clock on a Sunday. I'm going to make it a bit harder to watch all the games each weekend doing that, but or each round, shall I say. But also that does make it gives us an extra family-friendly fixture each weekend to get down to, which is great news. New Zealand Rugby has announced it's cutting 25% of its staff. That equates to 40 members from the head office have been made redundant. And the fear was initially that they would have to cut up to 50% of the staff, but resumption of Super Rugby has meant that will lower the number. Also, New Zealand Rugby obviously not expecting it to take a November tour with the All Blacks, and so the news has leaked of a planned All Blacks versus Kangaroos cross-code game in December. Kangaroos being obviously the international side or the International Rugby League side for Australia. It seems like a very strange idea. I know a lot of people aren't really up with this one because it will mean the removal. If it is just one game, it will mean the removal of a lot of key things that make rugby what it is, or makes union what it is, with the lack of scrums, lineouts, etc. So are we really talking about just seeing a league game? We'll have to wait and see as further details come out about that. But yes, definitely mixed reactions to that announcement by New Zealand Rugby. You are listening to New Zealand Sports Radio. Don't forget you can listen to it on the move. Just download our podcast. You can find us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, Acast, and all of those wonderful places. I'm going to now hand you back to Stephen, who is going to take us through our league update.
Thanks again, Paul. Not even a nasty facial infection and time spent in hospital was going to stop Nathan Cleary helping Penrith look pretty as the new NRL leaders. The little halfback face became so bad of cellulitis he had required urgent medical attention the night before the South Sydney clash. Cleary spent hours at a Northwest private hospital on antibiotics while he also underwent scans to make sure the infection above his nose did not spread. And to make matters worse, he copped a decent whack from Blues teammate and South Sydney lock forward Cameron Murray in the opening minute to make sure his face looked even worse. Yeah, it's not great if you see some of those images. When Cleary scored the final try to ice the 2012 win with 3 minutes on the clock, Nine must have been tempted to lift the game's classification to an MA rating. That's Channel 9, who covers the rugby league. James Roberts was playing his first game since the COVID-19 shutdown and was sent to the sin bin for taking out Stephen Crichton as he chased through a kick for a try. Then Latrell Mitchell was given his marching orders later in the game when he did a brilliant job at bringing down Brent Naden, but held him down too long. South had started to get a roll on, heading into the Panthers clash with wins against the Gold Coast Titans and the Warriors, and with Mitchell and Cody Walker looking the goods, but South and coach Wayne Bennett were given a rude wake-up call when defeated 2012 by a genuine premiership threat, and that's what Penrith are proving to be. Had Cleary not had it off night with his goal kicking, the score would have been much greater. His halves partner Jerome Luai also improves with each game, firing a rifle-like pass for Naden to score the first try, then putting through a grubber for Crichton to double the lead in the first half. The Panthers had plenty of joy terrorising South down their left edge, which included flying mop Billy Kikau. Kikau playing some great league this year. Kikau did it well to get his hands to a Cleary bomb that helped set up the first four-pointer. Naden could have had the first half hat-trick had the final pass from Crichton not travelled forward, and he was not the latter man who handled the ball in a touchdown on the short side. Naden was only given the nod to start the game that was shifted to Cogra because of a knee injury to Josh Mansour. Cleary was excellent coming in late, forcing a few repeat sets to deny South any late miracle comebacks. The Panthers scored 4 tries in total to Naden and Crichton in the first half, and Edwards and Cleary in the second half, who added the extras with 2 goals. Sirenen scored in the 51st minute, and Johnston scored right on the 80th minute for South to make the score a little bit more respectable. That final score again, Penrith's 20, South's 12. Now, just a reminder, we have 2 games coming up this evening, starting with the New Zealand Warriors versus Melbourne, and that is at Nostrata Jubilee Stadium starting at 8 p.m. And finally, the high-flying Sydney Roosters take on St. George Dragons at Bankwest Stadium. And just finally, just a quick story in and around the Warriors. Retired legend Simon Mannering has emerged as a key decision maker in the hunt for a new Warriors coach. The famously humble Mannering didn't have to be asked. He rang to volunteer in the hope of helping turn around a club still mired in 25 years of erratic performances and disappointment. Mannering said he wasn't trying to pick up the coach, but offer insights. His offer was enthusiastically accepted. A swag of hopefuls are in the frame for the veteran Tim Sheens from the veteran Tim Sheens to recent NRL coaches Anthony Griffin, Jeff Tuvey, Trent Barrett, England coach Shane Wayne, and up and comers from the Warriors. That includes the likes of Stacey Jones, but also interim boss Todd Payton. So, yeah, there's a bit to go through for the Warriors at this time, Paul, but that's it with league news today. I'll be back from another location tomorrow with more league news and right on the cusp of the weekend. Have a great Friday, everybody.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Yes, hopefully we'll have a warmer and more comfortable venue for you for tomorrow. Moving on to other news, and in the Sal's in NBL, and sorry, we forgot to do or we missed out the results yesterday. The Jets lost narrowly to the Nuggets 100 and 100 to 104. The Bulls lost to the Airs 95-107. The Nuggets then backed up last night and beat the Giants 107 to 82. And then another close scoring one, this time low scoring. Again, the Bulls having to back up, came up just short, 72-75 to the Rams. So a couple of very close encounters there in the Sal's NBL. What that means, though, is that we have three teams on 2 wins. That's the Airs, the Nuggets, and the Rams topping the table, whereas the Bulls, Giants, Huskies, and Jets are all looking for their first win. So early indications is that we have those 3 teams ahead of the rest. But say it's just the beginning of the season. The other teams have a time to catch up and get some wins on the board. Moving on to the America's Cup, and one of the mysteries of the Cup is that Ernesto Bertolelli, the owner of what was the Ligny syndicate, have not entered for the last couple of years, but he has kept the syndicate together with all the sailors and the team. He's been saying that the reason he has not returned is that each time there's a brand new boat class, which means that there's a lot of money, or a lot of the decisions are made around the technology side rather than the sailing side. He said he'd like to see a more settled class for it. That way, it becomes the racing skill on the water rather than who has found the latest innovation, and it also means that the costs are slightly more manageable as well. So interesting to have his take as to why we won't be seeing his team here in New Zealand for the America's Cup. He has said that he is excited by this new one. Whilst he is a fan of catamarans, he's excited to see how this monohull surfing boats will go. Over in the Gulf, and whilst a number of COVID-19 means there's been withdrawals from the latest PGA Tour event, that has been a boon for Kiwi Tim Wilkinson, who has managed to fill one of those slots. So we wish Tim all the best in the PGA Tour event that he's taking part in this weekend. You are now up to date with all the important sports news brought to you by New Zealand Sports Radio. Don't forget to like our Facebook page, or you can listen to us on the move. Just search for us on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or Acast, and download the podcast.